I don't know if you had this experience with students, but when I make the points that we've been making, people who know Hebrews flip to chapter 8 and say, yeah, but new covenant, clearly the old covenant is being seen negatively here. I don't know. What do you think about the movement from old to new covenant in Hebrews and how that's often taken?
Yeah, and that people, in my experience, also capitalize on the kind of better language. But I think it's really important to say that better does not, it doesn't necessitate a comparison between what is bad and good. It can be what is
good to better, right? Yeah, that's what I go. So like, can we say it's like really great to ultimate kind of is what the argument.
Exactly. Yeah. So wonderful to amazing, or whatever. So, but what I think is really important, and this is actually something that I've been wrestling with, and I don't even think it's well represented in my book, because I think it was still like coming to the fore of my mind when I was working on it, is understanding the future-oriented nature of what the author says about Jeremiah 31 and the new covenant. It's, behold, the days are coming, says the Lord. And the author of Hebrews, of course, is quoting this as something that God is saying at the time that he's kind of inaugurating this covenant, if we're thinking about the speech and all of that. So they're coming. And these will be days when you don't have to tell your neighbor, know the Lord, for everyone will. But that's not my experience today. That's clearly future.
So that's a mistake. Wait, if I'm just to jump in here. So
please.
What you're saying, just so we're clear, because I think this is really helpful. The Jeremiah quotation about having the law written on your heart, kind of like is it Christine Hayes, the great rabbinic scholar, says a robo righteousness or something like that. That is that's not fully actualized yet. That Hebrews says that's actually future in some ways. Okay.
I think, yeah. Well, I mean, Hebrews just quotes Jeremiah, but the thing is that he only says one sentence to kind of like wrap up this quotation. It's the longest quotation in the New Testament, and he literally gives it one sentence. He gives Psalm 95 2 chapters, in English Bibles, but he gives Jeremiah 31 one sentence. But here's the sentence. He says, oh gracious, I'm going to mess it up off the top of my head. But he basically says that what is growing old or becoming old is coming near, or is drawing near to disappearance. It doesn't say what is old has disappeared.
Right. Yeah.
And so I think that his one sentence actually presses us towards this kind of inaugurated, if you want to use that established terminology. It's talking about it as being something that still is. And this is something I've been talking around. We didn't talk a lot about the date of Hebrews, and we probably don't have time to do so, but I don't have any firm conclusions on this. But this is one of the places where the idea that the temple is still standing makes more sense.
Oh, okay.
Because he's thinking of the cult and the covenant as practice, as still being in effect, that it hasn't disappeared.
Gotcha.
That it's still here. And of course, this could be rhetorical, like looking backwards, like even though the temple is gone, like it's not disappeared or whatever. But either way, the old covenant for the author of Hebrews is not abolished necessarily. It's drawing near to disappearance.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's a really helpful way to think about it, in a way that's probably more accurate to the historical situation of what the author's intending, because it's always easy for us to look back on it, right, the situation later, and say, well, 2,000 years later, we're still in this interstice called the last days, but that's the period within which this author's writing and thinking. So you kind of are like, the new covenant has been inaugurated, but the reality that the Jeremiah text is talking about hasn't really been fully actualized yet. Would a reader of Hebrews still feel comfortable going to the Second Temple and worshiping in the Second Temple?
My gut is yes.
Okay.
But
we can't prove it.
I know that others. Yeah, exactly. But my gut is yes, but it's because of some of the things that I've been trying to highlight in this conversation about what sacrifices are for. They're not just for the kind of cleansing and purification, though that's how they're kind of marketed. But if they were only for that, then we wouldn't have free will offerings and peace offerings and things like that. Or the Tamid, like they're also for this drawing near to God and this ritual and worship and all of that. And I would imagine that it would be necessary for them to understand that what it affects is different, that it's not for the efficacious cleansing of their sin that's been accomplished.
Right.
But
there are other things.
They continue to do so. Yeah. So, and it also, I mean, my goodness, communion, we celebrate and participate in the sacrifice of Christ as often as we can.
Yeah.
And so I would think of that as kind of an analogous thing. Like, are we sacrificing Christ? No.
Right.
But are we remembering it and participating in it, depending on your tradition?
Yeah.
And so I would think that would have an analogy there.
Yeah,
so,
that's good.